DJ and PK reminding you, don't miss Minky Monday on The Zone. Tune in all day next Monday to win Minky Couture blankets, the original classy blanket. Minky Couture makes the perfect Mother's Day gift, and Zone listeners get 50% off with the code ZONE50. Don't miss Minky Monday on 97.5 The Zone. The code is ZONE50. NFL draft is in the books. Feeling good about what anybody did, bad about anybody did. It's a great unknown. Who the heck knows?
Yeah, I don't know that you really know for sure, but I think that numbers matter. The more picks you can have, the better. You look at Seattle. They had 11 picks, right? 7 rounds, 11 picks. You're going to hit. You may miss one or two, but you're going to hit. And that is something that's really important. And this is the ultimate team game, but yet at the same time, you need so much help up front. You have to win the line of scrimmage.
Justin Melo joins us now. He is the NFL draft analyst for the Draft Network. Justin, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Appreciate you for having me on.
Any teams you think did really well or did really poorly? Winners and losers.
One of the ones that really stuck out to me as a winner was the New England Patriots. First draft under new head coach Mike Vrabel. He pounded the table for them to bring Ryan Cowden over from the New York Giants. People forget that's who he wanted as general manager of the Tennessee Titans. When him and the Titans decided to part ways, well, he gets his way in New England, right? He gets Ryan Cowden over there. They oversee their first draft together. And I thought this thing went really well for them. And, ironically enough, the first round pick might be one of the riskiest, right? They go with Will Campbell at number 4. Ignoring the historically short wingspan and arm length. They say they think he's going to be a left tackle for them. Now, if he isn't, they won't say the quiet part out loud, but he can kick inside to guard. Certainly would be bad value at number 4 if he's a guard, but, it's a high floor player. And new regimes, first-year tandems, GM head coach tandems, they often go for high floor players in their first year. They don't want to get it wrong. There's a lot of pressure on them. From there on out, that's where their class really started impressing me. In the second and third rounds, they get Travion Henderson, running back out of Ohio State, who's going to add a big-time playmaking layer to their backfield. They get Kyle Williams, the wide receiver out of Washington State at 69th overall. This is a dynamic playmaker who's slightly undersized, but can play the X position, in my opinion, can get off press man coverage at the next level, despite his size deficiencies, because he's got such a dynamic relief package. He's very, very twitchy at the line of scrimmage. And they added a bunch of great players late as well. I thought Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia, went about 20 picks later than I had him pegged. I think he's a long-term starter there on the interior. And I really liked, and they're, Mike Vrabel-type players, Joshua Farmer, the D tackle out of Florida State in the 4th round, and then LSU edge Braden Swinson in the 5th round. I had 3rd-round grades on both of those players. I can borderline guarantee that they're going to at least be really good rotational players at the next level. I thought the Patriots crushed this draft.
Yeah, look at the Patriots with drafting Campbell. That was the first top 10 offensive lineman that they've drafted since Hannah in the 70s. Now you can argue obviously they've been having later picks with how good they are. But the point where I'm going with this, if you look at the first round, I think exactly half were either defensive linemen or offensive linemen. 9 offensive linemen and I think 17 defensive linemen. And I had heard or read somewhere that defensive lineman was the most that was drafted overall in the entire draft since 2001 or something like that. Is it an emphasis, do you think, that as far as what's going on, or was it not enough good skill players? What would you attribute that to?
I would attribute that to a couple things. First of all, the NFL is a copycat league. Okay, they might not admit it, but everyone's always trying to follow the blueprint for success. And whoever lays the most recent blueprint, that's going to be copied all over the NFL. How did the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl? It was with a deep rotation of defensive linemen who attacked Patrick Mahomes, what felt like on a snap-by-snap basis, right? They won that Super Bowl because of their defensive line and the pressure that they were able to put on him. So that's one reason for that. How about on the flip side, you need offensive linemen, right, to prevent that from happening. So that's why there's an emphasis on the trenches in this draft. And regarding the D linemen, I'll add to it by saying this also happened to be a really deep class, I think, at both positions, interior defensive tackle and then edge as well. There wasn't a lot of high-end talent at edge, premium talent, but there was a lot of good football players, guys that went in the second, third, even fifth round, as I just said. I was super high on Braden Swinson. I was high on a guy like Jordan Birch out of Oregon. This class just had a lot of really good defensive linemen. And at tackle specifically, I thought was one of the better interior D tackle classes we've seen in recent memory. You got guys like Tyleik Williams, who went in the first round, to the Detroit Lions. That was a bit of a surprise. You had guys like Darius Alexander, who, despite getting a little bit of first-round buzz around the league, went 70th overall, to the New York Giants. It was a really good quality football player. So for me, it's a combination of it happened to be a good, deep class at those positions, but it's also a copycat league, and everyone wants to get a piece of what the Philadelphia Eagles did in the Super Bowl.
I think if I had the second pick in the draft and someone offered me a number 2, a second-round pick this year and a first round next year, I don't know how I'd pass, especially if it's a team that's, historically bad, and that first rounder could be way up there in the first round. Was there any chance Cleveland Browns could say no and take Hunter, even though the fan base was all geared up to draft him? They had to take that trade, didn't they?
They did. And in all honesty, it sounded like, General Manager Andrew Berry didn't really think that long and hard about it. We got those rumors early on in the day, and as soon as the draft started, it essentially happened. Right? I mean, they interrupted the number 1 pick to essentially talk about the trade that was happening. And from the Browns' perspective, I get it. I really do. The offer was phenomenal. If you go by the old, draft trade charts that assign a numerical value to the picks, right? Like a number-based value to each pick. If you look at, and these teams, they follow it. Like, there were trades that happened that were almost to the letter. Like, put it this way, the Seahawks and Titans trade that happened in the second round, the Titans got 560 points worth of value, and the Seahawks got 550. Like, that's how closely these teams follow that. Well, the Browns and Jags trade, that one deviated as much as you'll ever see. The Browns won that trade by plus 1,800 points. If you're sitting at home saying, well, what does that mean? 1,800 points is essentially the equivalent of the number 8 overall pick in any draft. So to put that in perspective, Jacksonville overpaid by the value of a number 8 overall pick. That is a huge, huge overpay, historically speaking. So Cleveland had to take the trade. And when you're trading out of a quarterback spot, a spot where you're not going to get a quarterback, it becomes easier to make that deal, right? Like, Mason Graham, to me, was the 4th best overall player in this class. I had a blue chip elite grade on Mason Graham. I thought we overcomplicated his evaluation throughout his weight came in under than we expected. His arms aren't as long as I'd like. Put on the tape. Mason Graham was downright dominant at Michigan. He is a defensive tackle, in my opinion, that is in the mold of a Quinnen Williams, a Chris Jones, a Jeffrey Simmons. He will be one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And look, I was high on Travis Hunter too. I'm not here to badmouth Travis Hunter, but I can understand why you would trade out of that pick. It's a bit of a projection. Anytime you're projecting someone to be Babe Ruth or Shohei Ohtani, for example, it's a projection. We don't see those things happen very often. So can he play both sides? Can he handle that workload? He's a bit light in the pants from a weight perspective. He's a little skinny to project playing 70 snaps on offense, 70 snaps on defense every single, play. So we'll see how that goes, but I don't blame Cleveland for taking the offer.
You talk about teams trying to mimic what Philadelphia did. We saw 5 running backs go in the first 2 rounds, 2 in the first, 3 in the second. Any of those guys stand out to you as being able to be, not nearly, I wouldn't put them on the Barkley schedule or scale, but have success with them?
Well, I mean, Ashton Jeanty was the best one, and he was the best one for a reason, and I don't blame the Raiders one bit for going with him at number 6 overall. I thought that was one of the easiest mock draft picks you could make. You've got an old-school football coach in Pete Carroll, right, one who won a Super Bowl due to playing good defense, and we had a great quarterback, but it was a bit of a game manager. They leaned on Marshawn Lynch throughout those formative years. So I wasn't surprised to see Ginty go to Las Vegas there at number 6. And I will say, if there's one guy that has that potential, it is him. There's a reason he went that high. This is a really deep class. Trey Henderson, as I mentioned earlier, to New England, I think that's a great landing spot with Mike Vrabel. I loved his partner, Quinshon Judkins, the running back there at Ohio State, who also had 1,000 yards this past year, transferred to the program from Ole Miss and helped the Buckeyes win their first national championship in quite some time. I spoke to scouts, leading up to this draft who said there were going to be running backs taken in the 6th round that would have been 3rd-round picks last year. This is just one of the deepest classes we've ever seen. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, mark my words, they got Brashard Smith in the 7th round out of SMU. He's going to be a rotational playmaker for them. That guy's one of the best pass-catching backs in this class. Andy Reid's going to carve out a role for that skill set. They never have a workhorse there. Brashard Smith will rotate into that lineup and have an impact. So this is Damian Martinez to Seattle. They're on the West Coast. He goes there. They've got Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, but they're going to carve out a role for him. Like, good teams that have good running backs drafted one anyway because it was such a deep class. You've got to take advantage of it. The Titans have Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. They took Khalil Mullings out of Michigan, right? Same thing Seattle did. They've got Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet, but they took Damian Martinez. So just a super, super deep class. Ginty was certainly the best one for me, and I think there's he's got Hall of Fame potential, in my opinion. So there's some separation between him and the rest of this class, but this was an incredibly talented class of runners overall.
The Big 12 had 31 players drafted. The Utah and BYU fans here tracking this stuff locally can't help but notice the Big 10 and the SEC both doubled that. You could even just say Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas combined, those 3 surpassed what the Big 12 produced. Is that trend going to continue? Is it going to accelerate? What do you think?
Probably. In all honesty, if there's one thing the NIL era has done that is, one of the unfortunate aspects of it is, these prospects are all transferring to these big schools, right? That's where the money is. That's where the exposure is. I think NIL has led to less parity in college football, and that's the trend I expect it to continue following. It's the Ohio States. It's going to be Michigan. It's going to be Texas. It's going to be Georgia. It's going to be Alabama as soon as they get ready to reload here post Nick Saban. So, yes, unfortunately, I do think that's one of the negative effects, one of the negative side effects, if you will, of NIL, is there's going to be even less parity than there was before. And that's just the way it is. When you talk about BYU and Utah, they had a couple of guys I thought were going to get drafted that didn't. Caleb Etienne had a good year, first-team honors as the left tackle for the Cougars this past year. He went undrafted. I believe he ended up with the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm about to break news once we get off here. Dorian Singer, I don't know if you're familiar with his story, really interesting, was planning on returning to Utah, but got denied the additional year of eligibility. He found that out on the morning of his pro day. I mean, just talk about just a terrible timing by the NCAA, who showed no care for this kid, right? You got to make that decision far earlier than the morning of his pro day. So he finds out he's in the draft that late in the process. It convoluted his pre-draft chances, and he just got a rookie minicamp invite. He didn't get drafted, didn't sign as a UDFA, but I just got word he's going to camp with the Las Vegas Raiders. So at least he's going to get an opportunity here in a week or so to go show an NFL team what he's all about. So unfortunately, to close, NIL is just this is it. We're going to consolidate talent at a handful of programs. That's the way this thing is going.
Do you think the biggest mystery of the weekend is how Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson actually met?
I saw that clip briefly on social media where I guess he refused to ask the question. I would love to know where they met. It's pretty tough when you're 70 to meet a 25, however old she's, a 20-year-old.
24, come on, she's not 20. Jeez.
Apologies. I can't imagine where Bill Belichick was hanging out. There was a ton of 24-year-olds, but might have been Chuck E. Cheese. Who knows?
Chuck E. Cheese. Nice. Everybody's got a theory on why Shedeur Sanders plummeted. Which of the theories do you like the most?
That he bombed the interview process. I find it hard to believe Because, look, I wasn't very high on him as a prospect. Just removing all of the other stuff from the equation, I had concerns about his game, but I still thought he was like the value of a late first-round quarterback at worst, early second-rounder at worst. I didn't really get the hype in the number one, number two overall. I thought there was a fair amount of separation between him and Cam Ward. Clearly the NFL thought the same, but that was a debate, right, early on in the process. I didn't think, not even my wildest dreams, that I think number 144 overall, fifth round. It's pretty clear that teams, the teams will draft guys with concerning off-field stuff. We know that. Let's not pretend it doesn't exist. Teams will draft guys that are, have serious off-field allegations, and they'll take them in the first round if they're talented enough, right? So it does a couple of things to me. It says, A, the NFL did not think he was quite talented enough to deal with what they consider to be concerning off-field, not necessarily allegations, because there's nothing criminal there. It's just personality. It's attitude. It's a quote-unquote diva-like approach, right, that he embodies. I heard the interview with the New York Giants went very poorly. They said he was not prepared, that there's, again, a rumor, but they had handed him an install, and they felt he was not prepared to talk about their offense, which is very important, especially for a quarterback. Like, for example, Cam Ward nailed that aspect with the Tennessee Titans. When they had him do the install, they're like, yeah, this is a franchise quarterback. Teams did not get that same feel and vibe from Shedeur Sanders when it came to the install portion of the pre-draft interview process. So for me, it's a combination of, the cameras are always going to be around, dealing with his father. He's only ever been coached by his father, right? Like, it's how is he going to act when we remove him from that environment? How's he going to handle that change of scenery and pressure? So to summarize, it's a combination of teams clearly didn't think he was talented enough to take the risk that they deemed there to be one, right, based on some of the off-field stuff. And certainly he bombed that process.
We appreciate the time, Justin, and the references. Good work. You got a side gig there doing a little stand-up. You're the man. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Appreciate you for having me on.
Justin Melo, NFL draft analyst for the Draft Network, and probably getting a little NIL from Chuck E. Cheese on the side. You are pondering all things football.
I'm thinking tennis right now. I'm all about tennis.
You are not thinking tennis right now.
Who's going to win the next tournament? Is the Australian Open? Has it happened? Football, yeah. Football, the draft is the essence of building your team. And it's not the only way, obviously, but it is so dang important because of the number of picks that you have and the number of bodies that you need. And the Shedeur Sanders is a big story, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's over.
Just go win the job in Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't know about that. If you can eventually make the team. Number one goal for him has to simply be make the team.
They do have 4 guys for 3 spots.
Yeah, and Dylan Gabriel was drafted ahead of him. So what? I mean, the year that the Washington team drafted Robert Griffin, RG3, they in the 4th round, I think they took Kirk Cousins. Now, Griffin was a slight of built and had a lot of injury issues. Maybe he could have made it, maybe not, I don't know. But injuries certainly played a factor in his demise as far as his professional career. But Kirk Cousins is still playing today, right? He's been in the league all this time. So the fact that Cleveland went for 2, okay. To me, that it betters your chances of finding one that's good.
And that's what a lot of people were saying with what Cleveland did. They brought 2 guys in with the thought that one of them will eventually emerge.
I don't have any problem with that.
Nobody's emerged for 20 years.
Well, sure.
So double your odds.
Try something else.
Well, I mean, Bernie Kosar lives there. I think he could walk through that door.
He could with his 60-whatever-year-old shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be limping a little bit maybe.
DJ PK, Keith Smith, NBA analyst and contributor for Spotrac, coming up at the top of the hour. We will talk NBA playoffs with him. DJ and PK, stay with us.